Okay guys, welcome back to Keyless Entry, and today we're going to be talking about another ID4, and this time it is not going to just be, for those who love the long haul or the long travel. This is going to be the ID4S. Okay, so as we look at the ID4S, the nice thing about this particular model is you do get a few things that are going to be very unique, but at the same time, going to be very cost effective. What you do is you get all the functionality and features of the ID4 Pro S, but you also gain in features that you would pretty much lose, primarily just the battery power and how far I can drive on a single battery. Okay, so as we kind of look at the ID4S, there are things that stand out to me that just makes this car a great city car. To me, I feel like the ID4 as a whole has been something that it's in the middle, right? It's not the best range for a very long drive with minimum stops, but the ID4 as a whole still does give you a lot of features for the money. So with that being said, as we look at the ID4S is more like a city car, or designed for someone who's looking for an EV that can easily be utilized in a couple different ways, right? We can utilize it in a way of, I just need to go commute from one side of town to the other, and that's like my daily drive. Or it could be a car that a lot of people tend to, want to drive, because it does give you the ability to kind of reduce that carbon footprint, reduce how much gas you're putting out, and overall, the ownership on it is going to be really good if you're just driving around town with the occasional short trip to maybe someplace that's a couple hundred miles away. You can pretty much do that on a single charge between stops. I think that's something that a lot of people aren't considering when they start looking at EVs. So in general, this is something that you might actually, generally see that people are asking for or wanting to drive. And having an ID4S will give you that ability to kind of give you a good range around town. So your footprint of having to drive, or actually not drive, but having to charge every single night, you could reduce that to charge maybe every 2 or 3 days, and you only have to charge like 80% and still get roughly about 180 something miles. And if your daily commute is less than 30 miles between your home and your job, or just general commuting around, maybe grocery shopping, things like that, it kind of makes sense to go with something that's less mileage and a smaller battery. This has a usable battery around 62, or I think it's 66 kilowatt hours. I'll put it up here just to make sure I'm not wrong on the side. But it's roughly 208 miles. The ID4 Pro, and the Pro S and the all-wheel drive Pro S, they have a bigger battery in it, giving them a range anywhere from 250 to 275 miles. It just depends on the brand, right? If you're looking at an all-wheel drive version, the all-wheel drive version will give you less range because you have 2 motors in there. So it's going to use up more battery power, and it's a little bit heavier. This particular unit is only, I want to say it's a few hundred pounds less and it still gives you an adequate amount. You know, we still see EVs that are in this same price bracket and maybe even a little bit more, and they still give you 150 miles or 170 miles. So as those EVs start to die, I think that's the one thing you're going to notice, that a lot of those EVs are going to start to fluctuate and drop off. And that's primarily because a lot of these guys don't really need it anymore. They don't need to have, I'm sorry, a lot of the manufacturers are going to stop making these vehicles because they are seeing that they're not efficient and they are pretty costly for the money. So it doesn't make sense for you to actually go and get a car that's going to easily cost you an arm and a leg, and you just kind of feel like, oh my gosh, why did I put this much money into a car that doesn't give me the efficient range that I should be getting? For those who have driven an Audi 4 in the past and they kind of know that, okay, this is a car that, you know, doesn't make sense for a lot of people because they feel like, oh, it's too expensive for the money, and you know, it's Volkswagen, so you don't have that reliability issue. I don't think that that's an issue. I mean, I think that Volkswagen has done a really good job by putting out a very reliable product out there, with the exception of probably some of the first editions. We've seen several people complain about those for various reasons. Most of it's software related, but there are some issues where you probably saw reasonable issue problems that, to be honest, a lot of people don't know about or understand. If you don't understand or know how to drive an EV, it could be a little difficult to kind of get a car that you really like and you enjoy driving, and then at the same time you feel like, oh my gosh, this thing is not that great, right? Because it's different. It's, you know, you're not doing the same thing, you're not driving the same way, you're having to build a new habit. And that's something that, even for me, as just test driving these, because I haven't bought one yet, I still find myself saying myself, how am I gonna do this charging thing every night? Am I ready for that? And to be honest, I don't know if it's the right answer or right question that anyone should ask, you know, unless you already know. For those who've owned EVs in the past, whether it be a Tesla or Volkswagen or, you know, Nissan or, you know, Chevy or whatever it might be, those individuals kind of already have it in mind. They've figured out those workflows to make it easier for you to kind of want to invest into a nice new vehicle and get a car that is really, really rated well, good drivetrain, very fast. But honestly, I think one of the things that stand out to me in this scenario is the fact that an EV is going to give you something that a lot of other cars can't. And do you know what that is? It's cost savings of not only gas, but even on your electric bill. There are states right now that still have reductions on your energy bill because you have an EV vehicle. I'm in a state, unfortunately, I think they dropped it. Duke Power dropped their $1,000 rebate, I think it was, that they would do, and they just basically encourage you to charge overnight and not during the day. But there are a lot of states that have that. There are a lot of states that actually have state additional rebates. So you're talking about a car that maybe it's $45,000 like this particular model is, with all the features of a Pro S, but you just have a less range. But at the end of the day, once you get the EV tax credit, if you qualify for it, and if you're in a state that offers other rebates, anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 I've seen, it could be a very, very profitable way for you to kind of make money and save money. So I personally think it's a great vehicle for you to consider, performance-wise, energy efficiency-wise, but you do need to measure, do you need that extra roughly 69 miles or 70 miles? So if you're the type of person that says, okay, I can live with 208 miles through the summertime, great. But then when that mileage range changes in the wintertime, keep that in mind too. 208 miles may not be as efficient for you as you would need. And I can tell you right now, a lot of people kind of go into buying a car like this thinking, oh, 200 miles is all you need. But you also need to think about your commute and everything that you do, not only during the summertime, but also during the wintertime when your battery range will be a little bit less. If you're in a city environment, this is like a great city car. Even though it's bigger, it maneuvers really well. The turning radius is outrageous. It's just outstanding, I should say. The performance overall, get up and go, even though it's only 200 horsepower in this particular model with the S, it still has enough adequate power to kind of get you through traffic. No, it's not a speed demon. No, it doesn't give 0 to 60 times above or under 7 seconds. That would make a lot of people say, "Ooh, that's perfect." You would have to go to the all-wheel drive models to get that kind of performance. But you do get a unique vehicle that, to me, I think it fits a lot of check boxes for a lot of people. But don't take my word for it. I think that you do yourself a service by coming to test drive one. Um, if you're looking at buying an EV, test drive as many EVs as possible and as many brands as possible. You want to kind of get an idea to see, how well Volkswagen does it versus Tesla versus, you know, um, Nissan. You have the new Chevy Equinox and Blazer EV coming. We're talking about the Hyundai Kia group with the EV6 and the Ioniq 5. Now they have the Ioniq 6. There's a lot of models coming out over the next few years that's going to really stand out and give you options out there. So the ID4S, as if you wanted a fully featured EV, but you don't really care about the long range, I think this is a great option for you to consider. Now, the other thing that you might want to look at is also consider looking into, the types of way to purchase. Yes, you can buy these cars and you do get the tax credit. Tax credit does have to, there's a lot of laws around that are still being finalized, but as of right now, those are going to be strictly specific around, okay, if this works for you in this scenario, what else can we make work for you in that point? A lot of times you may not qualify for the tax credit based off of how much you make, where you are living, the vehicle type that you're looking at purchasing, it may not qualify for it on a purchase. However, there's a loophole right now, and it's probably going to be good till the end of 2023. If you're looking at leasing, the leasing agencies are now giving the $7,500 benefit back on a lease because there's a loophole in there that you can get a much better deal on the lease if you want to lease. So consider doing that. Look at that for leasing versus purchasing the vehicle. And that can easily, like I said, you can get anywhere from $7,500 in leasing credits all the way up to, with bonuses from the states and local officials and energy companies, you might save up to an additional $2,000 to $6,000. So that could be 13 grand off of a car that's $45,000. That's a pretty good deal and a really good payment, especially in this climate right now. So take some time, do some test drives, come check it out for yourself. Don't take just my word for it or any YouTuber's word for it. It's always up to you as the consumer to go out and drive and see what you like, because your opinion is going to be what makes you want to purchase it more than anything else. So thanks again for joining me for another episode of Keyless Entry and the ID4S. And thanks to Steve White, Volkswagen, once again here in Greenville, for allowing me to use this vehicle on a quick test drive. And if you do want to come look at one, ask for Ron Johnson, and he'll be glad to help you out. Thanks again. We'll see you soon. Drive safe.